right club. Be the right club today.
Johnny, that's better than most. How about him? That is better than most. Better than most!
Expect anything different?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up podcast, the No Laying Up live show. Hello to everybody watching on YouTube. If you're watching us here or listening in your car, whatever you're doing at the moment, my name is DJ, joined by my friends Solly and TC. Greetings from Jacksonville, boys. How are you?
Good, thirsty, sweaty, hot. It's hot here. It was just an energetic day. I'm still on the energy high, and I want to just make it to 6 p.m. here today because I have a feeling it's going to be the fatigue is going to set in here quickly. There's a lot happening this week.
Record high today, Deej. 92 degrees.
I heard, you know what? Snowing at my house, TC, quite literally right at the moment. So, yeah, wild one. We are brought to you today, as we always are, by our friends at Titleist. We got a lot to talk about today. Firm golf course. I'm receiving word of firm greens out there. You're going to need a lot of good long iron control out at TPC Sawgrass. We're going to circle back on that later in the show. But before we do, guys, we got a lot to talk about from just, I would say, the world of pro golf. We had a big update in the world of pro golf today as we heard from Brian Rolapp for the first time in a meaningful capacity since probably last year's tour championship when he spoke. He spoke at PGA Tour HQ. We're going to talk about what it means, him speaking at PGA Tour HQ instead of in the media center. That's a change. He spoke in front of media partners, notably PGA Tour staff, kind of an all hands come through, hear ye type of day. Took questions for 45 minutes, took questions till people literally didn't have any questions anymore, which was very impressive. And so I want to get into all the nitty gritty of what he said, what he didn't say, what he almost said, what he hinted at. But just first things first, Saul, I'm going to start with you. How we feeling? How we doing? What are you taking away from today?
I feel it's like suspiciously great about it all. My guard is up in some way of like, am I getting out ahead of myself? But I overwhelmingly felt during, there was some anticipation going into this. We kind of talked about this early into the week of, we're maybe hearing some things like there's not going to be as much in this press conference as maybe we'd hope. They're not as far as long as we'd hope. Maybe Rolapp running into some roadblocks, implementing his plan. And I did not walk away feeling that. I walked away feeling like definitively, I feel like the PGA Tour is in good hands. And it's been my whole life since I've felt that way, I think, in terms of where it's headed and the direction it's going. I said this when we talked to Rolapp back in August of the Tour Championship. It was like we took 10 years of our podcast and put it into ChatGPT and summarized it into an agenda and laid it all out. Like
make simpler.
I feel like it's crystallizing even more. We're going to break down the specifics of all of that, but it all started to really, really, really make sense. And it just, it's a soft skill and it isn't, it is kind of game changing, but it also isn't, of just the ability to deliver that message so definitively, so well. And so with the aura that he kind of had in doing it and the ability to just put the trust, I felt like he had everybody's trust in that room and nobody was like rolling their eyes at that. Nobody looking at each other like suspiciously like, really? It was just like, oh, okay. It's pretty hard to argue with everything you're saying here. If you didn't know the answer, like you kind of just said, like, we're working on that. I don't know enough about that at the moment. We'll come back to that. And I don't know, man, I think everybody left that room feeling like nodding along and making a little smirk face of like, okay, this is kind of what we're talking about. Let's go.
There was a lot of this was the day Brian Rolapp became president type of vibes floating around. But I think there was some substance and some stake to go with it, even if some of it was hints. But TC, what do you have to add to that? And also, just let's again, I'm a little bit biased here. Former PGA Tour employee, have been to the Players 200 times, have been to that State of the Union press conference, have been in the media prep sessions for that. I love this press conference. This one was totally different, and I totally missed it, and it was like the first of its kind. Just a little palace intrigue, TC. Like, paint a picture for me of like who's there, who's hanging out, who's talking to who's not talking to who. What's the vibe in there?
Yeah, I think the first of all, I was a little disappointed when I saw the screenshots you guys sent through for what it looked like on TV, because it just, same step and repeat, and sitting in the media center, it felt like watching Jay, hunched over.
We couldn't get the first part of Monahan. I knew it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. He got up there and called Jay a winner, which we can talk about that. But no, like it felt like, kind of went from a broom closet to like the entire organization is there in this $100 million Norman Foster design building that we reference all the time, like inside the moat. Like it's one of the coolest buildings in the world as far as like the design and all of that. There's 3 levels up, and like the entire tour staff. I mean, every tournament director, every corporate sponsor and partner, like they basically canceled the partner summit this week, and they were like, "Hey, just come to the press conference instead." They had, like the Uruguay Golf Association was there. Those guys had their blazers on, like all.
Those guys aren't just showing up just for shits and giggles.
PGA of America, LPGA. Like it was true. I mean, I saw everybody from the world of golf, maybe except for, I'm sure there was an Augusta National representative there, but I didn't see one or recognize one. But otherwise, like every agent, every agency that does work with the tour, like it truly felt like every single stakeholder was in the room, and it was like, come one, come all. Even if there's not a specific tangible detail or headline that came from it, I think it was truly just like under new management kind of banner at the top. And even sitting there, like he spoke directly, he spoke clearly, like a human being. There's not a media person up on stage with him choosing the questions and handpicking stuff. It's Rolapp pointing at people, calling them out, and
he was doing the Spieth go get that is kind of what I thought that was.
Yeah, it was kind of like when Randy did the thing at like the PGA Championship. He's like, "Yeah, next question." Yeah, like down in front here.
Yeah.
Like he was running it himself, and then like literally he was like anybody else have any questions? Like, does anybody possibly want to ask anything else? Whereas in the past, it's felt like, oh no, all right, we can maybe do one more question, and then like we got to get Jay the fuck out of here because he's going to spontaneously combust.
Well, let's get into some of the specifics here, and I'll preface some of this with, these are all none of these recommendations have gone to the board yet. None of this is real life stuff yet. This is kind of just what has come back from the Future Competitions Committee, which we referenced. The State of the Union at Eastlake. That was one of the things that came out of there was, Tiger Woods is going to head up this Future Competitions Committee. They're going to look under the hood at everything that we're doing, we're not doing. How could we be doing things better? They're going to come back with recommendations and how we need to change things. And today was less about like, we rocked them, here's exactly what's going into play this afternoon, and more about, here is what we're starting to see. Here are the big themes that are starting to kind of organize themselves.
And Deej, I would say before you get there too, like also giving us mile markers or checkpoints of like, you will hear from me again at the Travelers Championship, and I will update you on these very specific things, and then you will hear from me again at the Tour Championship, and you will, and it was just like, I know transparency can be a hollow word at times, but it was very much like, here's what we're working on. We're not there yet. It seems like they've kind of gotten under the hood and saying, all right, we can't break this thing apart yet. Like, we've got to keep it intact while we build the new thing. But also, here's what we're working on. Here's when you'll have the next update, and hold us to that. Like, there's accountability involved.
Yeah.
I think there's but I know we're kind of jumping ahead with this, but I'll be quick with this to say, like, I feel like they're at the point in the process where they now view being able to use the public nature of this as an asset for action, in terms of like, this is now out there, the buzz is out there, the reaction is out there. Like, who wants to be a part of this? Let's line up some sponsors. Like, you could feel like having all the sponsors there to hear all this and hear the enthusiasm could not have been an accident. Of course it's not an accident of like, now this is out there. Do you want to be in on the PGA Tour? Come to death row, because like you're going to need to step up to this big level, and this is how we're going to do it. And here's how we're going to do it. And, almost like using that as a little bit of power. Like now that this is out there, this is what the plan is. It's gonna be harder for people to fight against. And it just makes it a little bit more clear for people what they're signing up for, both from a media perspective and from a sponsor perspective.
Peter Jacobson, your ass is on notice.
We'll get to that. Well, speaking of clarity, one thing I would commend them on just from a pure communications standpoint is like make it clear what we're talking about. And I really appreciate it. As soon as hey, there are 6 points. Point number 1. And Brian Rolapp went through all of this. And I just think it's funny when you see the media reporting on a lot of this stuff, including what we're about to do right now. People are dying for this. People are just like, sweet, copy and paste the 6 points. This is what I'm looking for, rather than kind of like a mealy mouth, like, we're looking at that. We're kind of working on maybe this, that, and the other thing. And then people miss and construe things, and then everybody gets mad. Anyways, what we have are 6 points. And these are 6,
which is interesting because there's 5 points of contact or 5 points of pressure in football. Roll-up's taking it to 6.
I didn't even think about that. Point number 1, this has to do with the season structure. He wanted to make it clear that the PGA Tour, at least the first track, we're going to get to what first track, second track, top tier, lower tier type stuff means. But the main events of the PGA Tour, the big dog events of the PGA Tour, should run from late January to early September is what they're finding. They want to at least double the number of signature events, which means that if you take those, call that, there's 8 now, so double that to 16, plus the majors and the players and the Ryder Cup or President's Cup. You're kind of looking at like 21 to 26 events for the main like top players on the PGA Tour, which brings us to point 2, consistent fields. He really wants to incentivize the right players playing the right tournaments and sponsors knowing who's going to show up. And that means 120-man fields at those signature events instead of 70-man fields. And that means also with a cut, which people are very fired up about and championing today, as far as I can see. Point number 3, PGA Tour needs to open big, and what that means is open the season with a big marquee event at a iconic West Coast venue. I'm a little worried we're talking about 20 lines, but we can get to that. Finishing on network TV in prime time. Who says no? Not too many people, I don't think. Point number 4, the PGA Tour needs to take better advantage of major markets. Major markets. Wants to take advantage of the opportunity to bring golf to larger markets where it's applicable, not necessarily forcing it, but he called out specifically New York, Chicago, San Francisco, Boston, DC, Philly, all places that don't have a regular tour stop for some reason, and seemingly wanting to really get back into those markets and take advantage of those. I thought he made a great point that the bulk of, you hear a lot of this, like COVID golfers, the new golfers in the golf world, the bulk of those new golfers are obviously in high population centers, and those new golfers really have not had a consistent PGA Tour presence in the last 5 years, and haven't really had the chance to go to one of these events for the first time. So it is a little bit of like almost starting over in some of those places, which I think is an interesting thought. Point number.
Also funny to think about, like Boston is like, all right, TPC Boston's like an hour, 20 minutes outside of Boston.
Yeah, exactly. Point number 5, moving down the 6 points of contact here. Promotion and relegation, must credit Live Golf. He just continues to say meritocracy. There needs to be consequences. Fans need to know exactly what is on the line at all of these events. They need to know if somebody is moving up to the first track, moving down to the second track, what's on the line for different golf tournaments. And then number 6, enhancing the postseason. Exciting stuff here. Lots of kind of everything's on the table sort of situation.
The postseason. I want to pause on that word too, and we'll get there, but not the playoffs. It says the postseason.
Yeah, so exploring ways to add drama to those final events of the season, very explicitly including the potential of match play. One of the quotes that stuck out to me was, and we'll circle back to this when I get done with my monologue here, was the thing that matters above everything else is whether or not the competition is compelling. And I just think that kind of flies in the face of everything we've heard about the FedEx Cup in the past, where it's like, no, you don't get it. It's a big cash redistribution system, and it needs to be distributed along these points.
We're going to go to Memphis in late August. It's going to be awesome.
Rolapp's point seems to be like, no, you don't get it. It needs to be interesting or people are not going to watch. And this is, of course, where the quote that we'll probably reference a couple times came from, where he basically said pro sports are about listening to the fan or thinking like a fan, and 9 out of 10 times that's probably the right answer. Again, not necessarily where we've been in the past. So I want to go through all those kind of point by point, and we have lots and lots of stuff to talk about. But before we do, just a couple other things that he said that we're probably not going to get into today, but probably need to be read into the record. Again, none of these are going into effect immediately. None of them have even been brought to the board. Still just ideas. So, if there was no resistance to these ideas, they probably would have been pushed through, and we probably have a lot more announcement to be doing today. But instead, they're still just ideas. So that probably means we're talking about at least like 2028 as the earliest time that we're going to see a wholesale change. So worth mentioning that up front.
Which, Deej, I was a little bit disappointed earlier this week. I was like, oh, this thing might be a nothing burger. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, I'd rather than do it right than rush something out and just to win the press conference, or just to get it out for 27, when here's the vision. We're still working on the details. And he said that a couple of times of like, I don't want the details to start affecting the vision. I want the vision to, let's be flexible on the details.
Militant with the strategy and loose with the details.
Yeah. And I think that's important, where the details will matter and do matter, especially as it relates to venues and certain competition things. But the vision right now matters of like, all right, what are we trying to accomplish here overall? And like, yes, it feels like what we've been talking about for 8 years.
And there's also a built-in urgency to this. They touched on just the timing of media rights deals. So the media rights deal runs through 2030, but negotiations, I don't know when technically, but at least 2 years prior to that. And the media, like the entire market, needs to know what the product is that they're potentially buying. So like having it ready by 2028 is non-negotiable. Like that has to be ready by 2028, because that's the year when negotiations start, and it better start working right off the bat, because your entire valuation of your next media deal, which makes up what percent of your valuation of the entire company, I don't know, but it's massive, like all relies on that. So there's built-in urgency, and that's where I'm with UTC of like, we may see some remnants of this in 2027, and like 2028 is the year to focus on. And I think that they have no choice but to be ready for that.
A couple other things before we get into the specifics. Again, mentioned no consideration to folding the live players into the players. Just thought that's interesting with all the major talk and, who's missing this week and et cetera. Didn't weigh in on the major talk, which again, this is the only part where I'm kind of like, he was big on, that's just not for us to decide. That's not for us to
were you fucking trolling
well,
us?
it's okay. Well, it's your commercial, and it's okay. Well, let's just set that aside for now.
He was like, all we did was put out a commercial. Our marketing department did a really good job. And I was like, maybe for the first time ever.
Yeah, you guys are talking. Got you guys talking about it. Didn't weigh in on the rollback decision, other than to say that basically everyone seems like they're on different pages, stakeholder wise right now, as far as USGA is saying one thing, players are saying one thing, manufacturers are saying one thing, which is, I guess, how it's been for the last 25 years. And his point was essentially like, there needs to be consensus around, we need to all be looking at the same data. We all need to be having the same conversation before we can decide.
There's two questions. Best. He said, is distance an issue in the game? And all right, if so, how do we go about combating it? I think unequivocally, I hope he says yes with the first. But I think number 2 is up for debate, right? I think that
does the current rule that's being proposed accomplish that, was his phrase. Yeah.
There's a big, and I think his take too was very much like, all right, we're gonna get our house in order here, and we can deal with that here as we go along.
Yeah. This is worth mentioning, just I think, as some of the criticism and I hate all this change stuff starts popping up. Wanted to stress that no one should expect the tour to take a step backwards from a charitable standpoint. I feel like that's been out there a lot, is like we're taking all the charity money and we're funneling it to, all of the, like, 6 players. We'll see how the maths on all of that, but that's, relaying what he said there. And then the last thing, again, don't have to get into this today necessarily, but just thought it was very interesting when he was asked, I think by Joseph Lamagna maybe, about the idea that golf or that the PGA Tour does not own any of the 5 biggest properties in the game. He kind of made an allusion that I hadn't really heard before. That was like, we could potentially, as you start looking at rights, we could potentially be in an all boats rise situation if we start thinking about negotiating these things together rather than separately, because of how much everything runs through PGA Tour golf. All of the value of the majors is provided by who the stars are, which is created by PGA Tour golf. And it was just it flipped it on its head a little bit, because I think we've always kind of joked about, the PGA Tour has to provide 95% of these guys' income while owning none of the biggest pieces in the game. And this is the first time I've almost seen that, like, go on offense a little bit. What that means, what's going to happen, what the other, entity's reaction to that would be, is who could possibly say, but I had never heard it phrased that way before. I don't know about you guys.
I'd say if you ask like the LPGA Tour, there's probably some heavy mistrust there of like, oh yeah, that didn't go so well for us last night.
Sure.
But also there's a different guy negotiating now. Yeah.
And it could be a subtle, like, hey, we loan out our talent for the majors, and
that's how
why don't we all do this here, or else the price of the brick going up otherwise is
I think the PGA of America is in a very interesting spot with, like, if you look at the relationships had or lack thereof of like Sprague and Ray and those guys, where like the new guy, Terry from United Health or Optum or whatever, is like, he basically signed a massive proud partner deal with the PGA Tour for their company to host. Like, he's a longtime partner of the PGA Tour, and I think it's kind of resetting that relationship from what I gather.
Yeah. So I want to get into all of these points. We'll go into them in finer detail. But before we do, we gotta
I got to give a shout out to the subtle dog. You wouldn't even believe it, guys, how many subtle dogs I saw out there. My daughter was even calling them out, doggy, like daddy, on all these little kids that were walking by. The subtle dog is calling our name. The Roback Azalea collection is here. Fresh prints, clean colors. Just enough spring energy to make you think that this is finally your year. The classic azalea print plus new designs to fit whatever you need. How much we also love the Roback layering. It's not layering weather today, but who knows? It could change any moment here in Jacksonville. But they they introduced the new Highlands hoodie. It's got no drawstrings. It could be. We'll see. No drawstrings. It's got great stretch, smooth feel. It's lightweight, but it's warm for early tee times. This is a great, great, great golf hoodie. That is the Highlands hoodie. They also got a lightweight vest, the Brookline vest. It's got a nice stretch. It's got 2 pockets. It's made 5 holes, and then will roll up and fit very well in your golf bag. Great for spring golf. So if you're building the 2026 rotation, Roback's got you covered. Go to roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Use code NLU for 20% off your first order through the end of the week.
So getting back into the actual the 6 points of contact here, I'm gonna lump 3 or 4 of them together into this first thing, which is kind of the state of play. It's the structure, the 2 tracks I mentioned, the field sizes, the promotion, relegation. I think all of these kind of go hand in hand. And just to reiterate what we're talking about, as he's laying it out, he's basically saying we have 2 tracks on the PGA Tour. One there, by the way, if I may, just trying very hard not to say top track and bottom track or upper tier and lower tier, because it all is supposed to be the same tour, even though we're clearly talking about 2 different tours.
Not anymore.
The top track is the main players, 120-man fields, signature events beefed up with cuts, late January to early September, which I think begs, the question we can get into on what the bottom track is. But as far as, in layman's terms, so I mean, we are kind of talking about 2 tours here, it seems.
Yes, this is shockingly kind of in line with what we had talked about a lot in terms of there being a championship level structure. Like he talked a lot as well about restructuring the FedEx Cup and the point system that nobody really understands. And I might be paraphrasing some of that, but basically changing the way the
FedEx Cup point structure.
The point sucks. It doesn't work. We all do. Nobody knows how it works. How many points does the fourth place finisher get this week, TC? We do this for a living. Nobody knows. Idea. Nobody has any idea. Redoing that top level, this is where the events that are going to matter for the championship, there's going to be 6 of them, 120 people with a shot at it. There's going to be, and we don't know the details of this part yet, like opportunities to fall out of this series, to get back into this series, all of that, everything laddering up to a completely different competitive series. And I was thinking a ton about this today of, because we'll get to a little mention in there about the potential season as well. And I was like, are we overhyping this? Is this silly? Are we going to get there and still roll our eyes at this? And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But we've only lived in a world where we truly haven't cared who wins the PGA Tour title. Like if I asked you who won the 2013 Masters, I bet you guys could tell me. Who won the 2013 Players? I bet you guys could tell me. Who won the FedEx Cup that year? I bet you couldn't tell me. And but if you
told me what the
possibility,
courses were for the majors, I could tell you. Or for 2013,
Tiger won the Players that year. 2013 was Adam Scott, but I don't know. He was 2010. I think it was Bill Haas, maybe. I don't know. Anyways, Stenson. I don't know. That's the whole point. And but I think you can create a system where we do end up caring who wins if it ends up in match play. Like if we got a Scotty Rory final this year at the end of the PGA Tour season, like one of those two, I think we would remember that. I think we would definitively remember who won that. And it's weird because you have the Players Championship is kind of like the PGA Tour champion for the year. And then you have the FedEx Cup, which is like just a big money distribution thing. And you're more likely to probably remember who won the Players than you are who won the FedEx Cup. I think they got to work towards changing that. And I'm allowed to at least envision that world now where we care who wins the title at the very end of the year. And I think that's more important than we've probably talked about in the past. I just think that you got to nail that part. And I have a feeling they'll get closer to that here in the.
Yeah. TC, what stood out to you? Likes, dislikes, winners, losers. What do you think of kind of the overall?
I mean, going through the 6 points, the season structure makes total sense. And he included that September in there with, he made a distinction between, I don't necessarily mean the Tour Championship is going to be mid-September. I just mean we play the President's Cup and the Ryder Cup later into the, September like that. Consistent fields, I don't know of a single person who's going to disagree with that. It seems like there's, some of those Curtis Strange quotes in the Adam Schupak piece that dropped yesterday of it sounds like they're getting back to that. And Rolapp said, we went too far the other way in trying to lock down our own talent, and we're fixing that now. So I think 120 man fields is great. It sucks when you're out at a tournament and there's only 30 or 50 guys. There's just not enough guys out on the course to justify that sort of build out and all of that. Open big, I think that's a no-brainer. I would say open big, but also keep the momentum going too. I'd love to see, and then maybe go back to the West Coast, because you can go much later into prime time later in the summer if you go back to the West Coast than you can in early February, right? So I'd love to see him go to a place like a Chambers Bay or a place like go back to Pebble in August, right? That's where, they got to have all those conversations. Major markets, it makes sense, but also I think a lot of the time outside of some of the majors, I think a lot of the time the major markets can feel like a shiny object. And some of these major markets have so much stuff going on in them that PGA Tour gets washed out. And granted, maybe that's a relic of the old PGA Tour or of, hey, we're going to put a lot more emphasis and a lot more resources behind this, and we're going to make it a true spectacle. That remains to be seen, but it's a lot easier for the PGA Tour to feel big in some of these middle markets when it's the only show in town that weekend versus in, say a Chicago or a New York when there's the weather's great and everybody's out on the lake or out on Long Island, and it's like, hey, there's a bunch of stuff going on, and everybody's on vacation, kind of thing.
Well, let me pause there real quick on
Yeah.
the major markets thing, because I think it kind of ties back to some of the upper track, lower track. However, again, they're not going to ever call something lower track. So I'm just very curious from a nomenclature standpoint how they start to do that. But I am very curious, like, you brought up like a criticism on, and I'm not meaning to pick on these guys, but they just started the most recent quotes that I've read, but like Peter Jacobson and Curtis Strange and Mac Barnhart, and some of the people that were in Adam Schupak's piece that he wrote yesterday for Golf Week.
Like Mac Barnhart's irrelevant. Like, I can't believe he got quoted there. But anyway.
They're basically talking about how the PGA Tour is supposed to be this big traveling circus. We're supposed to have all these events. We're supposed to help charity. We're supposed to be doing all these things. And then I think there was a quote from Peter Jacobson that was like, you know, if you don't like it, then you can go to Live, because that's what they're doing over on Live. And it's like,
the best players play against each other on Live, if that's what you want.
Yeah. It's like, okay, everybody needs to pause, because for 5 years or so, that's exactly what we've been talking about. Because if today felt to me like the culmination of like this 5 to 6 year conversation we've been having, even before players left for Live, after they left for Live, and since the dust has kind of settled a little bit more, is like, well, first you had to keep the players. And the way they did that was with a lot of these like cotton candy, you know, guaranteed purses, like player equity, like all the things that have changed over the PIP, God, RIP. First you got to keep the players, then you got to figure out what the players want, then you got to try to implement that, and then you got to go sell that to all the other sponsors. Like, they've been trying to do a lot of different things at once. And to me, today kind of felt like the first, and the last 6 months as the FCC has been working on this, has felt like the first time where it's like, okay, we're all hitting the reset button. We're all going to get our arms around what the fuck is actually going on right now. And we're going to present like a new plan. And part of that new plan is both of those things. It is an upper track that can go to bigger markets. I think that makes a lot of sense for like the playoff events, right? Is like, yeah, those events seem like they should be Chicago and New York, and like kind of what they tried to do out of the jump. Like, I don't think that was like, didn't seem like that was some big failure. It just seemed like the FedEx Cup sucked rather than like the market sucked. And then
postseason.
Well, the last thing is then like that other track, like there still is room for the John Deeres, the Rocket Mortgages, the like,
100%.
Like talk to me. You guys were in the room. Like, talk to me about like, I forget who asked the question about scarcity, basically, because that was the word that I think spooked everybody. It was like, oh my God, scarcity means that we're going from 41 PGA Tour events down to 16, and he's trying to turn this into the NFL, and this is so stupid. And like, I walked away from today being like, and maybe it was maybe he was trying to clean up some of that wording mess, but he seemed to be taking like the opposite tack. Sorry.
Yeah, he said there's been a lot of discussion about scarcity. Ultimately, scarcity is not about the number of events we have, but rather scarcity is about making every event we have matter. And then, there was a question about misconceptions, and he kind of circled back and answered it. So I think about when I talked about scarcity, there's a bit of a misconception that scarcity means a dramatic cut in the number of events of the PGA Tour as we know it. As I said in my remarks, scarcity is about making the events we have matter more. So I think there will be a place for most of our events in our new model. Here's what I'll call it for the sake of this. There's like a championship series and like a tournament series, right? Like, there's still going to be golf tournaments for a lot of money that aren't like a part of this upper track, like a part of the championship series. And I have a feeling it's going to work kind of somewhat similar to the way the swing 10 and swing 5, next 10, swing 5 works now, of like, you play well in the tournament series, you're going to get opportunities up at the higher level. And maybe it's pretty cutthroat. The bottom 15 guys in last week's event that missed the cut horribly, like, you're getting relegated and you got to go play on the qualify. I don't know how dramatic that will be, but that's in a sense what he's saying as to how this is going to actually work and all ladder up to each other. Yeah,
it seems like it's like we're going to set up a system and then we're going to stick to the system instead of doing all these little carve outs for, oh yeah, you know what? You missed it, but you don't actually have to go through the system because you did this 6 years ago. It's like, no, like, all right, like you referenced English soccer, European soccer a couple times as far as promotion and relegation, or just like, it's like the Premier League. And then, all right, you drop down to first league. You're still playing, you're still playing soccer. You're still playing football. It's just a matter of you're just playing against different people and you're trying to earn your way back up. And I would imagine the churn, they try to almost follow that a little bit too, from a churn level of, if we have, what is it? How many teams are in the Premier League? I'm going to show my ass here, but
Who could
we
say?
all are, right?
Who could say?
Yeah,
I know, but I'm not going to say. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I mean,
You don't
I have no idea.
Like,
I can
all right,
see
like,
it
and then like two
jersey
of them
card
get
back on the
two
road.
of
We're
them
going
get
to say some bad
relegated.
stuff.
Two of them get promoted up every year, and it's like that. That's the churn. I think the other thing is like same thing with like sponsor exemptions.
Yeah.
No, like that's insane. Like you're telling me that like this guy sat next to the CEO of this company 3 years ago at a dinner and they hit it off, and like so he gets to be in like our quarterfinals, event. Like, no, that's outrageous. Like you should have to earn your way in unless you're like LeBron's son in the NBA. Like that's the only kind of exception that I can find.
That's real sport.
That's where the 120 thing takes care of it, right? I don't think you need to go past 120 to get someone in. I think they'll have to potentially look at like certain situations where they have star players returning from injuries and how that works from a medical situation. They'll have to have a clear answer as to how that all ladders up. Like, that's one. One thing I'm kind of curious on here, and I have been maybe one of the few, like, I don't think the cut thing really matters guys out there. I clearly am in the minority from what it sounds like from the what most people think. Part of that reason has been like, I don't think they cover the cut very well. I don't think the actual sweat is that interesting. I think they've gone off the air sometimes before cuts are finally decided. And I just don't think it's that big of a deal. I think that has been something that when they've gone to these partners for a ton of more money, they've been able to say definitively, well, no matter how bad Justin Thomas plays at Bay Hill, or no, whatever, that's a bad example. No matter how bad this star player plays, he's going to be there on that Saturday and Sunday. We don't have to show him on TV, whatever. He's going to be there. If you want, like, as a sponsor, if you're going to put up the money for him, he's going to be there on that weekend. If they can do this, if they can sell this still without being able to guarantee that all these guys will make it to the weekend, good for them. And I'm fine to bring the cut part back into it. I think it was a whether or not they had to do it, we could never know, but it was a concession to appeal to a certain sponsor to be able to say, if you're going to put up $25-30 million for this, I can at least promise you this. And I will say credit to them if they're able to bring that back, get all these sponsors in the boat with this without making that guarantee, then the whole golf world is also better for it.
But also, Solly, I think the important distinction too is like we're gonna work really, really hard to format and create a point system that incentivizes guys to play in all of these events. Like these guys are going to be guaranteed to show up 15, 16 times instead of 8 times, So I think instead of like I think cuts are almost humane sometimes of like, who wants to see Justin Thomas or not to pick on Justin Thomas, who wants to see Adam Scott or Patrick Cantlay when they're 25 shots off the lead on a Saturday afternoon and they just clearly don't have their game. Like, I don't think I'd rather see the 60 guys playing the best golf that week and whittle it down. And then that's how you create new stars and that sort of thing. I think the incentives is big. Also going back to the Premier League, 20 teams,
We
3
can
up,
now report.
3 down.
Thank you.
Every year. Many people are saying, I'm going to get roasted tomorrow morning by
must
Ian
credit the
Carter
knowing
and some
of
of the other
podcast
guys
on the numbers
in the
there.
media center.
I think to your point, you see the answer to that, I would say, is like, if you're like 9 years old and your favorite player is Jordan Spieth, let's just say in theory, I don't know if you're 9, why that would be the case, but and he plays horribly, like, and this is the cut, like you have a chance to go out and watch. He's in your town. You have a chance to go watch him with less crowds out early on Saturday morning is the case for not having a cut. And then again, not a lot of people view it that way and feel way stronger about it than I probably do. But I think you answer a lot of questions too, in terms of pushing this through the mule class. Like having 120 people is going to help you a ton. Like that's going to give you a lot more leeway to get this through. And if that's necessary to offset, again, like I said, if you can thread the needle with the sponsors and keep the mules happy, like I think this is like a home run.
I think too, it's like with PGA Tour U and all of that, like there's still pathways. Like he talked about pathways there. He talked about, I think just from the level of like I think they're just going to rip up some of the kind of the nanny state PGA Tour stuff, some of the entitlements out there of like, all right, like you're a top 25 career money list guy. Cool. Like that doesn't mean what it meant 10 years ago because purses have exploded. So you are guaranteed to play in the second track events. You're not getting into the first track events on that shit. You know?
Well, I think what's going to be really interesting, and this is kind of like the third or fourth step, and I'm sure this is the shit that is like, you know, making people pull their hair out right now, or why they haven't made an official announcement, is like the people who came up with these rules are not idiots. Like it's the opposite. They're very good at coming up with, you know, eventualities and carve outs, and oh, actually we got to think about this scenario and this, we need a plan for if this happens. And what you basically need is someone to come through with a sledgehammer and just be like, no, you don't get a 3-year exemption for winning this anymore. I don't know what to tell you. You need to go win it again next year. You need to get it. You need to earn it back. And I think, I don't know if it's going to be that dramatic, but that's the stuff he's talking about is, you know, it is truly the players who are playing the best. And what I think is so cool, Tron, we were talking about this earlier. Like what I think is really, really cool about it is if you're a player, we'll pick on our beautiful boy, Jordan Spieth. You know, I don't know if he fell out of the 120, like he would have been close, but he certainly has fallen out of the 50 famously, and now is in this spot where the tournament is clearly better to have him there from a sales standpoint, from an interest standpoint. And so then he gets put in this position where like he accepts sponsor exemptions and he does compete and he plays well, but it looks like it is a handout in one way, but it kind of isn't. But the point is, like, if he falls out of 120, dude, sign me up to go watch Jordan Spieth play in the John Deere Classic to go fight his way back in. Brooks Koepka comes back from Live, right? And they're like, oh, Brooks is coming back. Like, yeah, let's go see if he can beat, you know, whoever, Ricky Castillo at the Puerto Rico
is doing
Open
right now on the
exactly.
DP World Tour. It's like, let the system work. Like, you know, these guys have to go back through the proper pathways. Like, all right, you know what? Like, let's say Chelsea got relegated somehow. Cool. Like, you gotta go play some fucking weird places that are, you know, first league or whatever.
We got to take an L on the soccer stuff where there's just no way we're going to.
I was going to say this is setting
I love to see
up
Chelsea get relegated. I don't like Chelsea. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, it's going to be great to see it in practice. And Solly, I'm with you on like the next step is just, can you push it through? Can you get everybody on the same page? Clearly it's been hard, or it would have been pushed through already. So, you know, to Tron, what you said earlier, like the June looming date is like, that's not an arbitrary date. That's because that's when there's a board meeting. And I think putting it out there publicly is kind of like, guys, all right, it needs to be done by this day. So let's figure it out.
We gotta do something. Yeah.
I would think, Deej, it's not as much about the push through with the board and players as it is like unwinding what you need to unwind with sponsors, dates, venues, all of that stuff, and rejiggering all that together sounds harder to me than getting approval on all of this from the people you need to, because it's a really good plan. And like the argument against it is like, but I'm not very, very good at golf, and like that's going to hurt me a little bit. I just don't think that's going to fly anymore. Like that's it.
I have Golf Channel on, and they just threw up the PGA Champions Learning Center, and Ryan Armour is making his debut, or made his debut last week. Like Ryan Armour, Zach Johnson, Ben Crane, come on down.
I saw it's been I think Brentley tweeted out it was a 3-year anniversary of the Mules quote last week. So happy anniversary.
I think the other thing too is like, let's get fucking weird in this silly season, man. Like that's kind of where he said, I think there's some stuff like with regard to the DP World Tour relationship where it's coming out that you know, I think there's level of subsidization. Ewan Murray had a really good piece in The Guardian today about just some alarm bells going off, I think, where Rolapp's been saying, hey, you know, this feels like a one-way street right now, and we should be getting more out of this relationship. And basically, and he acknowledged in his presser today, yes, we have put another proposal or an updated proposal in front of Guy Kinnings and the DP World Tour that is, you know, very much like, hey, this is the new reality. And I think if you know, if the DP World Tour doesn't want to take that, then I think we're like probably headed towards some sort of breakup of the strategic alliance. And I think that, like, I don't know. I think there's an interesting thing too, where like you look at an entity like Augusta National, and they're basically saying, all right, we're not admitting the guys that won in the fall series this year, or let's say in 2028, they say, you know what, we're only going to let the first track guys in. We're not letting the second track winners in. The rest will come in through the OWGR or, but I think that like they've taken some of those fall series winners or those opposite field winner spots and said, you know what, we're going to go back to our core mission of growing the game worldwide. And we're going to say, all right, we're giving this to the Hong Kong Open winner or the Spanish Open winner, or, the like kind of like what the Open Championship, qualifying series does too. Like, I think that's something to where Augusta said, all right, we're going to put our money where our mouth is. And like, we don't think that these fall series events are important. But I think that's where the tour then needs to say, all right, cool. That's when we're going to go internationally. That's when September through, December or January is when, all right, maybe there is a co-sanctioned Australian event, or maybe there is, the Irish Open is also co-sanctioned, or, these guys want to play like the Tommy Fleetwoods and the Rorys of the world want to play more. Cause I think that's where the rubber meets the road a little bit on like, is Rory going to turn up 16 times to play signature events on the PGA Tour and play in the 4 majors and the Players and play the Ryder Cup and play 6 to 8 times on the DP World Tour? Probably not. Like, something's got to give there, right?
Well, it depends what the incentive program is. It depends how the points work. It depends how the status work, like all of that stuff. I think it depends how you're kind of enticing these guys to show up, which it sounds like is going to be a pretty giant carrot that they're trying to create. But so I wanted to ask you so for anyone who is not convinced on, all of this, I get what you're saying, but like, let's just go back to the old way. That seemed to be working great. What was essentially I thought there was a lot that came from his answer about the NFL's media rights that kind of illustrated like, this is why we're blowing this up. This is why we're trying to get the house in order. I was wondering if you could summarize some of that a little bit.
Well, he do you just mean what he talked about with the NFL having about 12 billion of the 30 billion media rights, whatnot? Well, I'm not sure I understand your question, but I think
what I was going to try to get at is like, I think there's a lot of people who are like, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? And I thought his answer about like, the NFL is the biggest like gorilla in going to the well on sports media rights. And I think the number that he threw out was, that market is currently like $30 billion. The NFL is about 12 of that currently, and they've publicly said that they'd like to double that. So do the math on what that leaves for everybody else. And what that means is like, our product needs to get a shitload better if we're going to be competitive in getting other media assets. And like, who knows what'll happen with the NFL and, how those numbers work. But I just like, I heard that answer and I was like, dude, that makes a lot of sense to me on, the media thing is what drives the whole engine.
Yeah.
And if you're going to try to put yourself in the strongest position possible, like that's what is pushing all of these decisions.
And the time to do this was prior to the last media negotiations.
Right.
That was the what made the last round so disappointing, and the length of tenure of that deal. Granted, there's a ton of flaws with the PGA Tour, and one of those major flaws was the fact that there wasn't a structure at the very top that it incentivized people like Monahan and the other brass at the PGA Tour to keep things in motion like they were. Like, they've reaped incredible financial rewards from this new media deal and the fact that money keeps coming in the door, and they've rode the coattails of the product, which is basically Tiger Woods and public, like the corporate interest in golf being what it was, and not tangibly tried to improve the product. And Rolapp's like saying, no. We did one deal too many, I think. Again, paraphrasing, this is not his words, but we did one deal too many without changing what our actual product is. And like, we have to be visionaries in some way. We have to turn this over. We have to make changes. And like, you do have to, they were way too slow to do it, and they needed Live to come into the ecosystem or the world of golf to actually be able to implement and push change through and see the urgency in doing it. But this does build off the backs of like this signature event model, which has been successful for the PGA Tour. It's flawed and not perfect, but has been successful to the point where like the Rolapp's ability to get this through is helped a ton by the fact that like they are on somewhat of a path. Like if they were in the 2022 model trying to push this through now, it would be, I mean, look at when the Premier Golf League guys tried to get a meeting with the PGA Tour about like changing a ton of things. Like they couldn't even get it because everybody was high on the hog and did not feel like they needed to change things. So this is one of those, I was told Steph Curry couldn't shoot things that I see out there of like you no matter what, you got to give Liv credit for like shaking the PGA Tour up. It's like, I literally don't know one single person that won't acknowledge that part, but we still do see that on a week to week basis. And yeah.
So I think like he said, hey, my goal is like, I'll talk about anything that ultimately makes the PGA Tour better. Right. We'll talk about ideas. We'll talk about all that. I think today was a communications win and a clarity win. And then I think it buys him time, or it buys him credibility then now to, all right, we need some execution, some operational and some strategic wins moving forward. And not just re-signing a 2010 media deal in 2020. You know what I mean? Like just keeping everything going. I think on that $30 billion number, like I was talking to some friends today about like why is the NFL trying to move up the date from 2 or 3 years to now to kind of lock all these entities in? And my sense is that like it feels like they've got new money in the system with the Ellisons and Skydance and Paramount and all of that, and buying Warner Brothers Discovery. Netflix has a bunch of money that they're not spending on that deal. You've got ESPN and Disney still, they're trying to gobble up rights. You've got NBC and Fox trying to be relevant as far as like, hold on as long as they can to figure out what's next. And then you've got these streamers that don't really know what their strategy is, but they want to spend more money. And it seems like there's more parties at the table now than maybe there will be in 2 or 3 years. And to me, it's like, even if the NFL, let's say they go to 20 billion, you have to think that maybe a little bit of that has to be incremental as well. Like if to go above that 30 billion, where like, all right, it's not just the NFL gobbling up, going from 33% of it to 66% of it. The total would have to go, like, there's got to be some incremental money coming into the system from a Netflix or an Amazon or an Apple from, taking it from 30 to 33 billion or something like that.
I think that's right. And if I'm understanding you correctly, the only pushback I would have is I think golf, more than any of those other sports, is still like the most beholden to the power of it is being on CBS at 3:00 on a Sunday afternoon.
Totally.
Whereas I feel like the NFL can be the tail that wags the dog and change people's habits. And like, if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. Fucking get Peacock. Is like they can do that. I don't think golf can. And I think that's part of kind of the alarm bells that are ringing. I mean, we see this like with baseball all the time, is like, yeah, you can come up with the best streaming platform ever. Like people still want to watch it on Fox Sports Wisconsin, which it hasn't been in 25 years. It's like people's habits are still just like, dude, just make it easy for me to just turn it on with my cable box. And I think that it's an interesting push and pull.
Which, Deej, on that note, like I think that's why you saw it at Torrey Pines, right? When Brooks came back, he said, hey, this is something that transcends golf. This is a front page ESPN headline or a front page of the Athletic headline. Let's take advantage of that. Let's, and it was during NFL football, like during NFL playoffs and all of that. Hey, let's all boats rise kind of thing. But yeah, I don't know. I guess the two maybe disappointments I have would be the rollback stuff but also I don't blame him for, hey, I'm not going to jump into that. I'm still assessing the situation. I'm a newcomer to golf and all of that, but also I don't think he may not view that as big a deal as the lifer golfers are, of like, yeah, like, all right, we're going to we're going to change the driver head, or we're going to change the ball a little bit. Big deal. We changed the kickoff rules last year in football. We changed the this penalty or video replay and all of that. Like, I think, maybe there's something like, it probably won't look like at the current presented rollback proposition, but I think once you lay it out to them of like, hey, you can go to better venues that can still hold a rolled back golf ball, or if distance isn't as big of an issue, you can go to this place, you can go to that place, that improves this product, or this is going to create more volatility down the stretch. That's going to help, drive viewership. We're going to see more things like we did 2 weeks ago at Cognizant. Like that's killer. I think the other thing is just
for sure, TC, because guys certainly are bombing it right now.
Absolutely bombing it every week. It just seems like we're seeing some massive ball speed number pop up, and the question is why? Like, these guys are already some of the fastest players in the world. Like, why is Adam Scott still getting faster? It's pretty darn simple. Like, the strokes gain data, it's very clear. Distance is a massive advantage in golf. It gets you closer to the hole. The game gets a lot easier, and that does not apply just to tour players. If you're an amateur trying to shoot lower scores, adding distance is one of the most impactful things you can do. That's where the stack system comes in. It's a speed training system that pairs awesome hardware with an app that guides you through the entire process. The workouts are quick. It takes about 20 minutes, a couple times a week. In the app, it adjusts your training as you improve. The best part is there's still time. If you start now, you can absolutely add speed before the season really gets going. Honestly, this is not their words, this is my words. A few sessions will change the way your golf muscles work. I could almost guarantee that. That's how it works. Has worked every time I've fallen out of a cycle of doing it. Do like 3 or 4 of them over the course of like a week and a half, and my body just moves so much better through the golf swing. Not just hitting it farther, but just hitting it better because my muscles are working in the proper way. So if you want to be the one bombing it past your buddies this year, check out thestacksystem.com/NLU. Again, thestacksystem.com/NLU. Code no laying up, I believe, get you a discount on that as well.
We need to start putting that on the product sheet. That's a solid almost guarantee right there. You can print that. That's an almost guarantee from Solid.
There's rules
and
around guarantees
for legal reasons.
Ads,
it's not a guarantee, but it is. That's
almost like longer, regardless of if the driver heads are smaller or the ball's rolled back. Right,
you're going to help you.
You're going to
score
make
better.
gains.
Yeah.
Roll-up tipped it off. They're not rolling it back, so just get fast. You better get faster, guys. All right.
Yeah. No, but I think the other thing too, like on that note, is like it does seem like the worldwide game is maybe an afterthought, but I think that's been the case for a long time, and it's kind of like, hey, if we lock down and make the product a hell of a lot better in the near term domestically, then you know what we can do. Like, the world's our oyster. We can do a lot of interesting things and get good stuff rolling, worldwide as well. So,
well, okay, from a venue or from a product standpoint, I want to talk about venues for a second, because that was a big focus of what he said today. There was a lot about TPC Sawgrass, the I don't know what's the control, I guess, that they have over that golf course, the control to be able to do whatever they want to that golf course, to host the tournament in the exact way that they want. I think you're going to hear, we already have heard a lot from Brian Rolapp about being militant about what makes the product and then following those indicators towards success, hopefully. And I think that, you look at Bay Hill, that golf course didn't look like that on accident. I don't think. You look at what made Cognizant really fun. I just feel like the notebook is filling up with, man, these weeks are a lot more fun when they're not 36 under birdie fests. Of course, all of this goes hand in hand with the rollback, which we don't need to talk about today, but you can't ignore that, I don't think. But you guys have been out at TPC Sawgrass. I don't think it's an accident that it seems like the ball's bouncing higher. It seems like the rough is thicker. So tell me a little bit about what you've been seeing out there and what we're in for this week.
It is noticeable. You go down to and look, this could all change tomorrow. We'll get to some weather stuff here as well. But you go to pretty much any hole that you laid eyes on, you're just like, oof, that's a little tint of purple in that. And I went and watched a couple guys hitting shots around the second green, third green, fourth green yesterday, and like even just little greenside pitches are making like. It's not Australian Open, Royal Melbourne firm out there. I don't think we're in for something that's like this is going to blow your mind how firm it is. but it will blow your mind compared to recent March TPC Sawgrass Players Championships, which have disappointed on a lot of fronts from a setup and agronomy perspective, and just how it affects the way the golf tournament is played and how it is enjoyed. I would strongly venture to say. And I watched just a couple holes. I followed Andrew Novak and Cameron Young around for a couple holes, and Sudarshan Yalamaraju was in that group as well. And watching just like the different impacts of the different shots and watching them chip from short left of 3 from the fairway and being able to hit excellent pitches with spin and holding the green on the upslope into the grain and stopping at near holes, and then go over to the right side of the green in the rough and in the moguls, watching the ball hit the fringe, bounce almost to knee height from greenside pitches, and having no one able to even come close to any of the little cup things that they had out there. Like the balls, they're not in control of the golf ball from out of position. I watched Andrew Novak hit not 1, not 2, but 3 drives on number 4. As a Novak hater, I needed to mention all of that.
I want to shout you out. You were trying to protect him in your tweet. I saw that. And
yeah, I tried to protect him, and he chimed in.
Just tell everybody it was me. I don't care.
Ball no or Andrew.
I saw him afterwards. I said, haters in the building. He goes, I'm in on this bit. This is kind of a good bit. I think we're going with this. I don't know if he ever found his ball from about 6 feet left of the 4th fairway. His first driver. If he did, he dropped, or if he didn't, he dropped one over there. And I think the lesson he learned there quickly is, hey, if I hit it over here, this tournament, I'm laying up, because his ball barely reached the water out of that rough. Cameron Young was in the right fairway bunker and like kind of caught one a little bit fat. This doesn't have anything to do with firmness other than it's hard out there, and it went in the water. And Yalamaraju was in the middle of the fairway. He hit a 3-wood in the middle of the fairway and hit like a very nice short iron or wedge into the green, bounded and landed up top and held with spin. And it was like, it deserved to hold. And I was like, boom, 3 shots on display right here of why this is going to be an awesome golf tournament if the weather stays away. And if you drive it in the rough, be prepared to have a bad time. You're not going to get bailed out. You're not going to have the ability to just run it through a green and stop it somewhere convenient where it's going to be an easy up and down, which I hate. Like, there's going to be emphasis on the driving accuracy part of it. It is just going to make for some really, really, really good golf if the rain that comes tomorrow doesn't ruin all of that. And to be honest, and I'm not agronomist, TC, but like it's in good enough shape right now where I think it can withstand a little bit of rain and not be completely toast. I don't think one rain shower, I think what is maybe a 1/4 of an inch scheduled for tomorrow, I don't think that is going to ruin what we have right now.
Yeah, I mean, Deej, your point from earlier of like, hey, we own this place and we can do what we want with it. It seems like the tour like kind of just realized that like this year they're like, holy shit, like we could challenge,
or at
these
least
guys
maybe the
if
right
we
people
want
at the
to.
tour.
No,
yeah,
they
exactly.
knew that, but they
Like
thought
the
we could make
marketing
this as
department
green.
had control, and now it's like, no, honestly, like we should dry this place out a little bit and you know, present a pretty coherent challenge. And it's like, man, like it's true that like walking around on a different golf course than it has been the last 5 or 6 years. With regard to firmness and just, yeah, they turn the water off much earlier. And Sally, you mentioned the rough. I think the height of cut on the surrounds as well, like the ring around 17 or the stuff right of 16 or left of 12. Like, Solly, we fucking rocked them, man. that strip left of 12, we said, mow down this strip.
Tear down this strip.
And they did. And like, we may see somebody put it in the water this week.
We need him to fall in the water if Randy's going to hit his his bet.
But we need somebody to go running after their ball, like Mickelson, and try to stop it from going in the water and then fall in. That's the best.
Yeah, but like truly, it's like, hey, like this is our canvas, and like we're gonna lean into, you know, hey, it should bite back a little bit. It should be, and hopefully, like, you want to do weather, you want to do forecast stuff.
No, well, the only thing I was going to add to that is it's just a good byproduct of a very silly conversation, which is the major thing, right? Where I'm like, okay, this whole thing is stupid and outdated and pointless largely, but man, if it gets you spicing things up and it gets you realizing like that really hard tests are going to create the best, you know, the best winners and chasing that side of the game, then like, all right, maybe that's a net positive. I don't know, but it remains to be seen this week. But Tali, what were you going to say?
I mean, we mentioned this kind of off the top of just again, this is where golf gets really interesting to me, and where you can nerd out a little bit on. I'm sure, I'm working this into an ad. I'm just going to telegraph this of what we teased off the top of with Titleist stuff of I bet guys are making tweaks this week, honestly. And one of the things that has come out, I know of fitting for all of us is I think we're all in blended sets of irons in some way, right? And if I asked either of you to describe what the descent angle is on your 4-iron right now, could you tell me?
I could only because of this conversation, only because I've had it explained to me over and over on what the descent angle needs to be, the 3Ds, distance, dispersion, and descent angle, all of that stuff, because of working with Titleist and doing all of this stuff for, reasons like this.
Solly, I just know it because when we were at TPI last week, I was like, hey, my 4-iron, I have too big of a gap between my 4-iron and my 5-wood. I need to bridge this gap, and so I put a U505 in with a graphite shaft, and then I'm playing around with the 8 and 9 iron and the T250 now too. But yeah, I'm very much here on Bermuda, especially or on firmer greens, that shit matters, especially the descent angle. On a hole number 8 at TPC Sawgrass, it's gonna be 235 yards, 240 yards. Wind's gonna be coming out of the east on Saturday, probably out of the northeast on Sunday. It's gonna be in off the left on that hole. That's gonna be a man-sized golf hole, especially with rough that's 4.5 inches long surrounding it now.
We watch approaches into 16 as well. If you don't have the proper descent angle on something like that, it is running through the green into the water. And what we've kind of, I'm in a T254 iron, which is going to launch it higher, because everything I would hit, if I went to 150 all the way to 4-iron, that's where they figured out the gap was. They said I could have even gone to T255 iron, and I might at some point, because I love how much height you get out of that. And that's that. I don't know, the fact that we're talking about conditions, bringing something like that out and tying something in of what we've learned. You can't do this stuff on your own, is my point. Titleist.com, get fit for something like this is the overall trying to make in all of this. But continue, Deej.
Well, yeah, I think the venue stuff is fascinating. I think it goes along with some of the postseason stuff, the playoff stuff we talked about, which is there seems to be this overarching, whatever makes the competition most compelling is kind of over and over and over what I think you're hearing. And I kind of like it. You even hear some of this in with Ryder Cup talk, when you just kind of start hearing Team Europe say the same mission statement over and over and over, the same verbiage over and over. It's oh man, people are starting to actually be on the same page here. This is great. And the more you kind of hear the tour talk or Rolapp talk or whatever, the more you kind of hear that stuff shining through, which is the only thing that I have been somebody that is very, very pessimistic about a golf postseason, golf playoffs, any of that stuff. But at least when it's accompanied with this is it has to be compelling first or it's not going to work, is where I kind of walk away from this whole conversation of all right, man, if you could marry that up, like you said, Solly, with getting the mules on board, getting the sponsors on board, getting the networks on board. All right. I feel like we're all rowing in the same direction here. And that's maybe kind of my lasting synthesis or takeaway from the day. If I was trying to describe why I feel so optimistic is that it feels like we are kind of putting the product truly first. And I think that starts this week again, where it's are we putting our money where our mouth is here? Is this going to play like a major championship golf course, or is it not? Are we going to, when we get to June, are we going to revamp the playoffs, or are we not? At every turn, it seemed like all that stuff was on the table. He wasn't married to staying at Eastlake, yeah, we really want to have
killer would Eastlake be in April?
Pre-Masters or
pre-Masters,
post-Masters. Yeah.
Fucking awesome.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And that, I think that's the other thing of I almost think back to I've been coming to this tournament for the last 11 or 12 years straight. And it's such an awesome golf course and it's such a great place to watch golf, but I feel it's just been a shell of itself until now, or we've been making compromises this whole time. And it's we don't have to, right? We don't have to set it up like that. Let's have confidence in the people who are, running PGA Tour agronomy and PGA Tour competitions of hey, put them in charge of what do they want to see? cool. Like, well, there's more of an emphasis to challenge these guys and more consequential shots and more consequential moments. Cool. Like, put the onus on the players a little bit more.
It also seems like, reading between the lines too, that like the tours, if it goes well, now we're kind of getting into if this then that, but if it goes well and they start seeing the ball go through the hoop on exactly what we're talking about here, they're going to get addicted to that kind of control, and they're going to get very impatient with traveling around to different clubs and having to work with different memberships, and we can't actually do that because we have this member guest that weekend that always is like, they're going to get very impatient with that stuff, which is where I think it ties back to him this is a projection by me, but I think it ties back to some of that SSG stuff, right? Is like that was the only thing he kind of sort of tipped his hand on, just like, maybe this investment helps us basically put up the money to have the events that we want to have. Maybe I don't know if that means actually getting ownership of different venues, or if that means, I don't know what
imagine if they had a network of courses.
Right. Of course, TC.
That were purpose built to host tournament golf, and then the players had an equity interest in those, and players could go and play and practice at those and make those their home courses and all of that thing. Imagine if that existed. No, but like, in all honesty, like, I think there is, maybe, unless you do something with distance and some, like,
they built all those courses at the wrong time.
Right.
Yeah, and with the wrong architects, and they were residential plays and all of that. But like, hey, let's say you made a concerted effort to revamp that or refresh that. And because I think there is probably a crisis of, some of it's going to the wrong, like, we go to good courses in a lot of markets, sometimes at the wrong time of the year too. That's part of it. But there's also a crisis of, like, I don't think there's enough good courses in this country, at least, that can host PGA Tour events,
for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. Or, maybe that's part of the solution is, hey, we're going to move around a lot more, and this course doesn't have to give their venue up or their property up every year. They, you sign something, and we're going to do this every 3 years or every 4 years. And there's more rotos, kind of like what the BMW Championship has done, to where, hey, you want to host something, but I mean, Sully, you're a member at Timuquana. Like, that's like, it's a senior tour event, and that's like the most disruptive part of the year out there, right? Is like,
it's a huge impact, right? And it does damage to the course, and it stays damaged over the course of a winter, and the grass doesn't grow back. Yeah, it's a lot. It's not it's not the 1 week where they're playing on the course that's the problem, but yeah, they're gonna be interested in owning these courses and these venues that they're going to be going to in a lot of different ways. Just owning the setup and being like the arbiter of what kind of golf's going to be played on and the commercial opportunities that come with it. That's going to be that's more important to them still. Like, that's if I was to have any kind of a pessimistic view of the Rolapp era, is he's not a golf purist. I don't think he's going to magically like create the style of golf that is the most aesthetically pleasing to us golf nerds in particular. I think it's a commercial play. They're going to try to make as much money as possible, and that's what the mandate is. But I think we're going to be closer in that Venn diagram of what the fan wants to see and what's going to be commercially positive for the PGA Tour they're swimming the right direction on that. I think I don't think they're doing this for the love of the game, though. Is where where I would draw the line.
No, I just hope that I think that there's some people there and some people he can rely on to, like, all right, I've got the tact, give me some taste here on the golf front of, like, making sure that it's not just like, hey, we're going to Liberty National. How fucking cool is that skyline there? Like, no, like, all right, or like blow Liberty National up and let's start over and create a compelling, venue there, like layout. But I think, I don't know. I just think that there needs to be, that discerning level of, like, all right, here's what makes a good venue. And we are also, like, we hear you, golf purists, golf sickos, core fans. Like, so, like, one of the other things that stuck out this week that feels like almost an afterthought, but I think it's a big deal, because we've talked about it for 10 years, is like, how is there not a golf sounds of the game or sound effects like on NFL Network? Brian Rolapp's bringing NFL films in to produce basically said thing this week. with certain players, or they're bringing in a variety of other things. It's like they're basically saying, hey, you know what? Like the current offerings aren't cutting it. We're going to add more to the table here.
Hearing some of the stuff about what they have up their sleeve for that program this week as well, it, like, has me jacked up as a true, just like
a core fan.
Yeah, man, like fly on the wall for golf moments.
Yeah. Not like, hey, we're going to build this narrative 10 months after the fact in full swing, and it's going to be totally disconnected from what you actually remember happening. Like, no, here's us taking you
it's real
as close as you can get to the action.
Yeah, and it's unproven.
It could be one of the coolest pieces of golf content like we've seen at the professional level. If it turns out the way I'm picturing it, and I'm sure the way they are picturing it, and if they happen to get the right guys that are in the mix in this, like it could be truly incredible. At minimum, I think we're in for one of the most unique pieces of content we've ever seen come out of a major golf tournament. Damn, I did not mean to say major. A significant golf tournament.
Happens.
Dang it, it's just incepted in me.
That's how it
Solly,
happens.
it's not. Tarico's not here. It's not a major because Tarico. Like if this was the U.S. Open or Open Championship, Tarico's bringing us in on Thursday morning, Thursday midday. Tarico ain't here. You know?
Well, I feel like we could take each of those 6 points of contact, TC, and do another hour at least about each of them probably, but let's leave it there for now and move on to this week. TC, I know you got a couple things in the notebook. What do we got our eye on?
First of all, the weather. We've got our eye on the weather. Talking to our chief meteorologist here at No Laying Up at ProTrad Holdings, and really here in Jacksonville, First Coast News Zone, Lewis Turner, the great man himself. He's it sounds like tomorrow this front's going to push through hopefully pretty quick, according to his models. He sent over some of his proprietary models. He says his models tend to overstate some of the rainfall totals. He's seeing between 1/10 of an inch and less than half an inch. So it's probably in that 0.2, 0.3 inch thing. Should come in after lunchtime and then move out. And then we get a wind shift, DJ, and the wind is going to come out of the northeast.
We know what that means.
That's the good wind. You can cancel Christmas.
Yeah.
All right.
We got an alarm bell emoji in our Slack, and I was like, oh my, there is going to be some breaking news here from TC. It was just a change in the wind direction. And I was like,
that's how good it is.
I just don't know if that was
we
red
only
alert.
Get it like once every 4 or 5 years during this tournament.
I need it.
It's diabolical. It's in off the right on 17. It's in off the right on 18. 13 gets really tough to control your trajectory there. So all good there. I think Friday, cools off Friday. We get sunny and cooler, high of 70. Saturday, pretty much same deal as Friday. Maybe winds moving a little bit more out of the east southeast. Then Sunday, TBD, could get dicey. Not a lot of moisture in the forecast, but potentially some electricity in the forecast. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe looking at an earlier start on Sunday to get it in, because Monday doesn't look great either. So we'll see. But yeah, basically tomorrow we just got to dodge this frontal system that's moving through, going to cool things off. But yeah, just got to hope that kind of runs through and only dumps 1/10 of an inch, because I think the course can very much take that. Otherwise of note, we've got thank you, Lou. If you see Lou out there this week, I know he'll be out there. Just thank him for his service. He's been a long time supporter of the program and very generous with his models. Governing bodies, like I said, there's an equipment meeting this afternoon. Rory flew in this afternoon. Hit balls, did a little mini presser. I think Conspiracy TC thinks that Rory just wanted to hang out at home for a few more days and chill and we'll see what happens. And I don't know, maybe the aforementioned DP World Tour, PGA Tour 2027 schism is at the forefront there, but that's just me injecting nonsense into the mix.
We'll take that to another episode.
And you guys, you guys wouldn't believe, like, this is a glimpse into what we deal with on a daily basis in terms of just me injecting nonsense into
I truly think that if the tour goes too hard at the DP World Tour and says like we're gonna cut the knees out from under you, I think Guy Kinnings and the DP World Tour go straight to Yasser and say, here's your off ramp for your shitty live product. You inject all this money into the DP World Tour. We integrate the live players, do national opens, and it's the global golf tour, and the PGA Tour is the US golf tour. Like I truly think, I don't know, but that's the off ramp there. What else we got? We got an Akshay anchoring update. Todd Lewis on golf or live from last night said that Gary Young looked into his technique out on the putting green, assessed it, and cleared him of any wrongdoing. Paul McGinley and Brandel had a great chat about it last night on Live From. Live From's awesome. Like in the big weeks like this, it elevates it. It sets the stage. I chatted with Paul today, said like, hey, like that was a great chat last night. Brandel was making some very non-subtle references to Bernhard Longer, of someone who's like, guys are refusing to sign his scorecard basically out on the Champs Tour. But they said that it's a very, very poorly written rule, which I agree with. But also like Adam Scott, Lucas Glover, other guys that anchor, like they're not coming anywhere, like they're an inch or two off of their shirt, or like they're not coming anchoring anywhere close, or sorry, who use the long putter.
Guys who anchor.
Like they're making it clear, whereas Akshay is like, no, like he's touching his shirt, and it's very like he's putting himself, like the governing bodies aren't doing anybody any favors, and then Akshay is not doing himself any favors either. And I think that that's an important thing of like, like Gary Young going out, who's not Gary Young is kind of a pushover, right? Like he's going out there saying, all right, Akshay, show me your stroke. Are you anchoring here? It's like, they're on the putting green. He could easily just not anchor, right? Like just bring it away from him. So I don't know. I think the whole thing is it's unfortunate because we shouldn't be having this conversation. And I would implore the USGA and the RNA to like just fix the fucking rule.
Yeah. Seems like the USGA should be able to just swoop in a moment like that and hand out tickets. It's like, no, you've been cited. You were anchoring on the fourth hole. I know. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Chalk.
We're pulling rank.
Give him a Jose Altuve buzzer. Like that, just if it hits there, like
put a local rule in place this week. You can't touch your shirt. Straight up, you can't touch your shirt this week.
Local rule. If you don't do it, TC, maybe they won't do it. Yeah. I like it.
Scotty Presser. Tej, what'd you think?
Oh, it's great. It was great. I really, really enjoyed him geeking out about what has become one of my favorite topics, which is just dudes who can play different golf on different courses and accomplish strong results. He had an awesome 3-minute answer all about the difference in the challenge between playing Pebble Beach, where all you're trying to do is take spin off your golf ball at all costs because it's going to get hammered by the wind. The greens are mush, as he says. All you're trying to do is take all the spin off your golf ball that you can. And then you go to Bay Hill and all you're trying to do is put as much spin on the golf ball as you possibly can. And the fact that we're just like, what the fuck? Why can't these guys win at both tournaments is just an unintentional humble brag by Scotty. I think like it is him being like, here again, this is my read into it. Not at all what he was saying, but to me, I'm hearing this as just like, these are the things I'm doing every week that you guys are not even noticing. And I just keep finishing T2 and T3 and T5 every single week. And it's kind of what was going through my head when you guys are talking about this week's venue and how Sawgrass is going to play so much different than, even all the other golf courses that we've seen this year. So it's just, the
cream should rise more. Because of that, right? It's
a wildly underrated, just part of pro golf that we almost like just take for granted, I think. And I really enjoy.
What do you mean this guy that won that won the marathon gold medal isn't competing in the 100-meter sprint?
Yeah, exactly. What the hell? Just play better. He's got to want it more. Yeah.
I think my thing, going back to the last few weeks with Scotty, we've been having this talk internally on our Slack, is like how Scotty gets up there and he says the most thoughtful, golfy, like really, really conscientious stuff as far as his game and his place in the game, or the way he approaches different golf courses and all of that. And then he goes out and that's where I get frustrated with the bitchiness of that's the same person. Right. And there's a dissonance there a little bit of, that's like, if it was some, moron hothead who's just, who never gives us anything good in press conferences or whatever, out there throwing clubs or getting frustrated and acting pouty, whatever. But it's Scotty, who, is he's standing there and he's kind of opening up and saying really, really interesting stuff. And then he's also going out and just acting like he deserves to make everything inside of 30 yards. It's just, it's tough for me to square those two personas, I guess.
Yeah, I get that. He had some good stuff too about commitment, and I would encourage people to just go watch the whole presser. But he was talking about his goals and how he views results and how he stays locked in on the process and all this stuff. And he started talking about basically all my goals are just shot by shot. He's truly one shot at a time. That's what that means, is I have a certain expectation of every single shot, and whether or not I achieve it is I kind of assess that in the moment. It is sick, which as an optimist, I'm looking at that as yeah, that's probably why he's frustrated, man. Cause he's talking about, yeah, the last couple of weeks I have had moments where I was not as locked in. I was not as committed as I should have been. And then I put myself in a bad spot. And so again, I get that it's unbecoming, it's bitchy, it is all of those things. I'm just a little bit of Tommy Lee Jones, where I'm I don't really care. It doesn't bother me that much. But you're welcome to be as aggrieved as you want to be. I get it.
Yeah, I'm not entitled to being aggrieved either. He can do whatever the fuck he wants.
Sure.
We all have our moments. That's
exactly.
for sure.
Exactly.
Hey guys, I feel we're getting very close here. I'm it's a big week. We got a lot of live shows going on. I appreciate everybody who's stuck on this far. I said, hey, I'm going to do giveaways more often during these live shows. I got a new giveaway tool here. Hopefully people can see that. I asked people to do a little wind in honor of Lou here. I don't know why it's not getting better, but we're going to do random drawings. So Deej, you have a beautiful hat. In honor of that amazing hat, I am going to ship X-Ray Punk 1159. Go ahead, shoot me an email. There you go. Solly, you also have an awesome Titleist hat. All I have is ropes, baby. You know me.
I love it.
I'm sorry. That's
rope in the wind.
So, let's see who the next one's going to be there. But anyway,
Kind of ropey right here.
We're at the final precipice here of the 2026 Players Championship. Have you guys changed? Matt Fisher 1172, please also hit me up. Have you guys changed who you think's actually going to win this tournament?
I might have just talked myself into Scotty as I was saying all that. But no, I love, I got my feeling on Adam Scott, and I loved his, he had a great presser this week talking about the old vibes of when he won here for the first time. And what was that, 04? And sitting at one of those restaurants and overhearing somebody say some fucking no name is leading the tournament, and he was sitting right next to him. It was shot 63 on Thursday or Friday. It was good stuff. It seems like he's got good spirits. It's all he telling me, he's bombing it, so I think it's an Adam Scott week for me. TC?
I'm still going with Ludwig. I haven't laid eyes on him yet this week. But,
haven't laid hands on him.
No, that's a good thing. Yeah, I know Morikawa's odds have I don't know if plummeted is the right word. They've gone from in the 30s to mid-teens, I think, as far as his odds. But no, I'm sticking with Ludwig. I think we're in for a big hot boy summer. Ludwig.
Interesting. Solid.
I'm on Scotty still. I'm not moving. Again, I'm just continue to try to be early on his triumphant comeback from his falling outside the top 20 one time. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. All
right,
right,
we'll save the it's some fun stuff from the first timers presser. We've got live shows after every night this week, which I'm stoked for. I will say, I think Stephen Fisk and I, like, we might now be best friends.
Love
he's
that.
a long-time podcast listener, and he was just like, "Oh, DC, what's up, man? I listen to you guys every week." It's like,
Hell yeah.
sick.
Well, that's great.
Great.
And then
to hear.
also, yeah, just keep an eye out on 11. There's a new tower on 11 that they're going to show us the second shots on. That's going to be sick. And then all the wind graphics are back this week. They've got the stuff that's like, they show the different levels of wind on, especially on 16 and 17, where like once it gets above, say 70 feet, they're going to, get all right, like you're going to get a wall of wind above 75 feet or whatever. So also Sable offshore is absolutely ripping today. So just shout out to Mickelson on that one.
Congratulations to anybody holding that one. All right, let's call it there. Cody, thanks for running the 1s and 2s. Shout out to TC and Solly for a great day down at the Players. Thank you to our friends at Titleist, our friends at Roback, our friends at The Stack. And like Cody said, we're going to be live after each round this week at the Players. Excited to keep it rolling. Talk to everybody tomorrow. Cheers.